So welcome to Friday Night Candlelight Yoga, everybody. And I love having beginners. I love having students that have practiced yoga for many, many years and everything in between. I want to teach you. I want to share how really awesome this practice really is. So that said, let's begin with sitting on our mat, sitting up nice and tall. Just our first pose tonight is going to be good posture in our seated position. And we can find good posture using an imaginary vertical line. And that line's running right down the center of your body, right down the center of your spinal column. And then we begin to start to frame our body right around that center. Maybe if your shoulders felt rounded when you came to the mat, maybe now they're starting to expand and soften. Shoulders soften, falling away from the earlobes. And now that we've taken a few moments to really place ourselves well in our seated position, let's check in with our breath. So I'm going to give you the number 8. So as you inhale, count to 8 slowly. And exhale. Seeing if you can measure that same 8 count. Let's take a few breaths, more than a few breaths, to practice 8 count breathing. Notice if at the top of the 8 count, if on the inhale you start to feel a little tight, a little restricted, those feelings that you're bumping up against, they're important to the practice. That's your body giving you feedback. So let's listen and breathe deeply. And one more time in your own 8 count, but let it be slow. We don't have to super quick count. No, slow your roll tonight. Let that be your guide. Notice the moment of pause that you run into at the top of the inhalation. There's just this moment, a pause, a stillness. And then on your exhale, we really move the breath out of the body completely. So as we move through the practice tonight, let's check in with the 8 count breathing. And when we use that pace to help us define the breaths, each phase of the breath, when we're complete about it, then there is a complete filling of your body with the breaths that you're taking. So that vertical line I referenced earlier, running down the center of your spine, when you take a 360-degree breath, all of the space around that spinal cord down the center, all of that space is filling. So let's focus on our breath as we continue to practice. It's going to be an important part of our evening. Now that we've practiced good posture and deep breathing, let's just uncross and create butterfly legs, our first stretch, our first yoga pose, Baddha Konasana. Feet are bound together. And the energy of the soles of your feet coming together starts to generate a little stretch across your inner groins and thighs. Make sure that you feel steady in the base, the bottom of your body. And let's start from vertically tall. Finding vertical, upright, ground to sky. Defining the phases of our breath clearly, our inhale as well as our exhale. And with the breath, we perhaps ease forward. As we fold forward, the stretch will start to deepen. This is where we listen to our body deeply. And we stop before the strain happens so that we find the stretch, that positive sensation. And when we feel well balanced, it's much easier to find those 360-degree breaths in your body. As we take many breaths, the more breaths that we take in the postures we practice, we perhaps melt just a little deeper into the position, into the form that we're creating. And if you folded forward, we'll come back to that vertically tall seated position. And we're going to change positions onto all fours, tabletop. Let's take a few rounds of cat-cow flow. I'm going to move slowly, but I'm going to give you the side view so you can see the curves that are happening. You're coiling into cat, creating a great stretch across your upper back and shoulders. And then cow pose is where we dip the curve the other direction and expand across chest, shoulders, and lift the face and heart. Exhale draws your cat pose. Inhale draws out the cow pose. So let's take a few more rounds, checking in with each curved shape, the cat and the cow. Now let's step our right foot forward to the front right quadrant of the mat. From here, shifting your hips, your bottom back, extend your front leg. Those things happen together, right? The dynamics of yoga, there's so many different actions happening at the same time. So here we're finding balance on our heel as our right leg extends forward. And those actions create a stretch running up the back of the thigh, the hamstring muscle. That's probably what you've heard it called. Bowing forward from your hip hinge. And not only is your right leg lengthening, but your spine is lengthening quite logically as well, from your tail towards the crown of the head. Again, I point out it's a deep hamstring stretch, yes. The pose itself is called Ardha Hanumanasana, a half splitting pose. Invite in a few of those 360-degree breaths that we've been talking about. Use your 8 counts. One more long, deep breath, please. And slowly shift, slide your right heel back. We meet on all fours, hands and knees, our tabletop position. Left foot steps up to the front of the mat. We're going to create Ardha Hanumanasana again. So shift your tail back, extend your left leg, establish your balance. And balancing on the left heel is a key action here. Check in with your spine. Is it rounding? If you catch it, try to create a little more linear action through the spine instead of the round or slump. Let's take, I'm going to say 2 more long, deep breaths, please. Use your 8 counts wisely. And slowly, after that second breath is emptied, we'll draw our legs back. We're meeting tabletop again. Child's pose. Your tail moves backward, arms stretch forward. The balance point is center of the forehead. In your child's pose that you're practicing, you might a stretch through your feet and ankles, a stretch being generated through your hips. You're gently stretching the spine and arms, and discovering those 360-degree breaths in child's pose. Balana. Now let's move out onto our belly and elbows, our forearms. Let's first discover Sphinx. And Sphinx poses framing your body nicely across the ground, through your hips, across shoulders. And there's strike down energy happening through your elbows and arms. But there's upward energy lifting through your heart and face. So there's truly a lengthening happening from your pubic bone, your tailbone, your bottom floor, right up through the top crown of your head. And now that you've balanced your body in Sphinx pose, softly dip your chin towards your chest. Continue your arm press down energy as the chin gently dips. And let's move our deep breaths into the space at the back of the shoulders, between the shoulder blades. Gently lift your chin and face upward again. Now, part your feet. Your feet may be hip width. Maybe they were a little closer, but now your feet are going to move out a little wider than your hips towards the sidelines of the mat. And then our hands shift towards those corner edges of the mat, kind of create a little arrow moving off to the side of the room. Place your hands on those handprints there. And notice lifting using your spine, using your belly, using your shoulders and chest. And yes, your arms. You're creating a great deal of balance through your handprints, through your straight, strong arms. Shoulders, keep the arms plugged into your body. So there's that shoulder plug-in happening. We've placed our bodies thoughtfully to be able to breathe and sustain the shape we've made. We're practicing seal pose. So again, balancing on your front burrs, lifting your seal nose upward, feeling the stretch that's being generated right up your belly, back through the shoulders, across the chest. And slowly, let's lower to the ground. Child's pose. Hands plant and we push ourselves gently up and back to Balasana. Slowly rising to your tabletop pose again on hands and knees. Here we are again. Now let's bring right foot back up to the front quadrant of the mat. This time, feeling your balance in the right footprint, sinking your left hip towards the mat, and just maybe your left knee glides back slightly to increase your hip angle. And that's for you to determine what degree of hip opening here that feels good for you. Establishing your balance and breathing deeply. I hope you're remembering to use your 8-count breath technique to truly fill and find each phase of the breath. Inhale and exhale. Tremendous. And each part of the breath, there's feelings that happen, things, key actions that happen when we inhale, then inhale. And when we exhale, we soften, we release. We have the opportunity to purge some tension. Now let's ease back. We already practiced it. Ardha Hanumanasana. Straighten your right leg, stretching right hamstring. Balancing while we bend forward and breathe deeply. Now slowly ease your right leg back. Tabletop position again, please. And left foot steps up to the front left quadrant of the mat, balancing and taking our lizard pose. Now let's ease back to Ardha Hanumanasana, shifting the tail and back end backward, extending left leg forward. Reset your balance and discover those 360-degree breaths here. Notice how the more breaths we take in the pose, and the more time, we have more opportunities to feel the changes happening within the body. I hope you're tuning into that. It's a pretty cool thing about yoga. Now slowly, let's ease back out. All fours position. We've been here a lot tonight. This is our reframing position, our transition position. So we're going to use angles, and we made angles with our legs in our second pose tonight in Baddha Konasana. So right leg will shift up to the front of the mat and create that butterfly leg effect, that external rotation of the hip. And then we balance on our handprints. We unpack that action tonight. And also gliding back. My left knee, thigh, leg, glide backward. Sinking your pubic bone towards the ground. It doesn't have to touch, but you want to stay centered, balanced, lengthening. And maybe your body's saying, come down to your elbows. Maybe it's not. Listen deeply, please. Find your balanced position. And let's keep on breathing together. Those long, deep breaths using 8 counts wisely. Filling 360 degrees of the shape that your body's making. The shape or the form we've taken, pigeon pose. I think it's important for me to mention right now that if your knee's not loving this pose, there's another option to move onto your back. The same right leg makes an angle, and you create something a little, perhaps maybe more in your body. I'll say it again. Honor your body. Choose wisely the option you wish to practice. All right, let's meet with our handprints on the mat, right? That starting position when we started our pigeon. Let's come back to that origin point. Now, your back toes, your left toes are going to turn under. Oh, we get a nice little hoist upward of the tail, downward dog pose, Adho Mukha Svanasana. You're making an inverted V shape in the body, creating balance in your front paws. They traction downward and forward to help produce your stretch all the way up to your tail, your hind end in the sky. And may you fill 360 degrees of your downward dog shape with those deep breaths that you're taking. Please bring your knees back to the mat. We'll tabletop again. Now, left leg comes to the front of the mat to create externally rotated leg, externally rotated hip. And then we slide or glide back through the right leg, centered, balanced. Check in with those qualities in your body. Not just when you're on the yoga mat. Check in with those qualities in your body more often. And if you're getting an invitation from your body, then drop down to your elbows. One more long, deep breath, please. And back to our handprints to balance. And we shall shift out of this pose back into downward dog, please. Arrange your body thoughtfully and breathe deeply. Allow your knees to bend gently in downward dog. All of the straight is really happening through your arms and through the spinal chain. The legs, they they get a bendy break. Knees definitely have a micro bend or more, because if you were to, in this moment, visualize a dog in your mind, they do not have stick straight hind legs, not at all. So give yourself that little rounded haunch. And then lift your puppy tail up nice and high. Good job. All right, knees to the ground. Let's be child's pose again, Balasana. Let's meet back on all fours, tabletop position, right? Our reframing, our transition position. Now, move to your side on the mat. So that looks like this. Just pick a side and align yourself with it. Then allow knees to slide apart. So you are in tabletop, and now knees are just sliding out of that tabletop position, and we come down to our elbows. We frog pose, or if you have the goalie doing this, a goalie stretch. Notice if your belly is dipping to the ground, zip it up as to lengthen through your spine, continuing that action as your inner groins and thighs are taking quite a stretch. Balance and breathe. And as we do those things, maybe we melt a little closer towards the ground without harm. Right? Find the good space. Find the good space. One more long, deep breath. And then we use our hands to help peel us up out of the frog. Bring your knees back together. And let's have a seat on the mat, cross-legged. Position 1, seated in really good posture. Sitting tall, vertically tall, in really good posture. So again, we've returned to position 1 tonight. Hopefully your body feels different being here now. That said, we're going for more hips tonight, but I'm keeping those hip stretches well balanced for you. Right leg bottom, left leg top. And that looks like this when you tie up the knot pose. And once you knot the legs, you knot the legs up, your seat might become very uneven. Let's ground down, right? Root down through your sit bones, through your seat. Establish your roots and balance. And then sit up, prop yourself up. You can use your hands to help prop you up. Find vertical tall. And once we've done all that, placing our bodies thoughtfully, we could be feeling a whole lot of stretch right now. Or maybe your body's wanting a little bit more. And if you want a little more intensity, you start to lean forward, remaining anchored down through your sit bones and seat as you fold forward. And just check in that you feel well balanced or well placed in your seat and breathing deeply. Now, no matter where you are here, whether you're vertical or forward of vertical, maybe you want to give a little chest stretch a try. So hands clasp back behind you. So maybe you're sitting tall, clasping hands behind, straightening arms, or maybe you're folding forward with it. All right, let's release. If you bound the hands, you can release them. And now let's unknot our legs and change sides. So left leg bottom, right leg to the top as we tie the knot. And sit down evenly through your sit bones. Prop yourself up vertically, right? Check that alignment, ground to sky. Right, root down to rise up along vertical. And then we maybe add the fold forward. And wherever you are in the stretch, vertical or shifting forward, let's try the hand clasp behind again. Binding hands behind, straightening, enlivening the arms, active arms. And pretend I placed a walnut between your shoulder blades and give that walnut a little squeeze. Activate those muscles that run right up the center of the shoulder blade space, right between the scapula. All right, release your arms, release the bind. Legs were tied, legs straddle out. All right, last position. This is kind of a hips, greatest hits class. We've been working on a lot of these poses up to this point. So as we create our seated, straddled stretch, starting from vertical and tipping forward gently, right? Find the degree of flexion forward that feels good in your body. And feel 360 degrees of your belly, ribs, and chest with those deep breaths that you've been practicing taking tonight. Slowly, if you folded forward, sit up, and we'll bring our legs back together. We're going to change positions onto our backs. We'll lie back and bridge pose. You could use arms at sides or hands clasped together under your hips, right? Binding the hands and arms, straightening, strengthening arms, rolling your shoulders and arms back deeply into the ground as you lift your middle upward, your middle body rising and filling with your deep breath. Or a very long, deep breath in your bridge pose. And then slowly lower yourself. Bridge comes back down to the ground, your bottom's on the ground. And then give your knees a hug into your chest, right? You're lying back. Give your knees a hug. And the way you hold your legs, the way you hold your tucked legs, it translates to unlocking the shoulders, letting the shoulder space, the back of the shoulders broaden and rest across the mat. Now let your feet float back down to the ground softly and extend your legs. And when your legs are straight and resting on the ground, they're apart as far as the bottom corners of the mat. Think of resting your heels on those corner edges of the mat. Allow your arms to drift out, an even extension, an even expression of both arms. And let's come back to the breath principle that we started with tonight. 8 count breathing. Inhale for a very slow count of 8 and find the pause at the top of the count. And exhale for a slow count of 8. And enjoy that deep breathing that fills up 360 degrees of your very animated body. You're practicing Shavasana, your final relaxation pose. Now is the time to enjoy the journey. The crucial thing in life is the journey, not the destination. Focus on the trip, not the map. Learn from the setbacks and the diversions. Use them to make yourself stronger and wiser. Live life moment to moment. Allow yourself to enjoy the experience. I do my best to try and create a blissful yoga experience for you when we meet. And I hope that we accomplish that tonight. Some blissful moments. Peace and namaste, yogis. Thank you for being here tonight. Start to wake yourself up and bring yourself back to the surface again. Good job tonight.